Have you ever wondered why people behave the way they do? Why some individuals instantly dominate a room while others quietly observe? Why a simple smile can build trust? Or why silence can make someone uncomfortable enough to reveal their true thoughts? Human behavior is not random. Beneath every reaction, decision, and habit lies a complex network of psychological patterns. These patterns, often invisible to the naked eye, reveal how people think, feel, and process the world around them. Today, we are going to uncover powerful mind tricks that expose these hidden patterns and help us understand what is really happening inside the human mind. Understanding how people think is not about manipulation. It is about awareness. When you understand the psychology behind behavior, you become better at communication, leadership, relationships, and even self-growth. From everyday conversations to high-stakes decisions, the human mind constantly leaves clues. In this video, we will explore psychological mind tricks rooted in behavioral science that reveal people's intentions, emotions, confidence levels, and thinking styles. Some of these will surprise you, while others will suddenly make past experiences make perfect sense. The power of first reactions. One of the most revealing mind tricks is observing a person's first reaction. When something unexpected happens, the brain does not have time to filter responses. That first microreaction, whether it is a smile, a pause, a raised eyebrow, or a shift in posture, often reflects genuine thoughts. Psychology suggests that our initial response is driven by instinct, not logic. This is why first reactions are often more honest than carefully constructed replies. For example, when you share good news, notice who smiles instantly and who delays their reaction. A delayed response does not always indicate negativity, but it often reveals internal processing, comparison, insecurity, or emotional conflict. Similarly, when someone is confronted with an unexpected question, their immediate body language can reveal whether they feel confident, threatened, or deceptive. The mind acts first, words come later. Silence as a psychological tool. Silence is one of the most underestimated mind tricks in human interaction. Most people are uncomfortable with silence because the human brain is wired to seek social validation. When silence appears, the mind rushes to fill it. This is why remaining silent after asking a question often makes the other person reveal more than they intended. Psychologically, silence creates pressure. It forces the brain to interpret the gap as judgment, disapproval, or expectation. In response, people tend to explain, justify, or confess. Skilled negotiators, therapists, and leaders use silence strategically, not to intimidate but to allow thoughts to surface naturally. If you want to understand how someone truly thinks, allow moments of silence and observe what they choose to fill it with. Eye contact and thought patterns. Eye contact reveals far more than confidence. While popular culture suggests that avoiding eye contact means lying, psychology paints a more nuanced picture. People break eye contact for many reasons: cognitive load, emotional discomfort, memory recall, or cultural conditioning. However, changes in eye contact patterns often reveal shifts in thinking. Sustained eye contact during listening indicates engagement and respect. Rapid blinking or darting eyes may signal stress or internal conflict. Looking upward often relates to imagination or memory construction, while looking downward can indicate reflection or emotional processing. When combined with other cues, eye behavior becomes a powerful indicator of mental activity and emotional state. The foot direction trick. One fascinating psychological trick involves observing a person's feet. While people consciously control facial expressions and gestures, feet often act unconsciously. In social psychology, foot direction is considered a strong indicator of interest and intention. When someone's feet point toward you, it often means they are mentally engaged. When feet point toward an exit or another person, the mind may already be disengaging from the conversation. This happens because the lower body responds more instinctively than the upper body. The brain prioritizes direction and movement for safety and comfort. By observing foot orientation in meetings, conversations, or social gatherings, you can often tell who wants to stay, who wants to leave, and who feels comfortable or uneasy. The compliment test. How someone reacts to a compliment reveals how they see themselves. When you give a genuine compliment, Pay close attention to the response. People with healthy self-esteem tend to accept compliments with ease and gratitude. Those with low self-esteem often deflect, minimize, or joke it away. Meanwhile, individuals with inflated egos may exaggerate or seek further validation. This reaction is rooted in self-concept theory. The mind resists information that conflicts with internal beliefs. If someone does not believe they are competent, kind, or attractive, a compliment creates cognitive dissonance. Their response becomes a defense mechanism. This simple trick can reveal confidence levels, self-worth, and emotional maturity. Mirroring and mental alignment. Mirroring is a subconscious behavior where people copy the posture, tone, or gestures of someone they feel connected to. When someone mirrors you, it often means psychological alignment. The brain unconsciously synchronizes with individuals it trusts or admires. This is why strong leaders naturally get mirrored by their teams. On the other hand, lack of mirroring or sudden changes in posture can indicate disagreement or emotional withdrawal. If someone was leaning forward and suddenly leans back, the mind may be distancing itself mentally. Observing these shifts helps you understand when engagement increases or decreases, without a single word being spoken. The choice illusion. One powerful mind trick that reveals thinking patterns is the illusion of choice. When given too many options, people often feel overwhelmed. When given limited choices, they feel in control. Observing how someone reacts to decision-making reveals their cognitive style. Analytical thinkers take time, emotional thinkers rely on feelings, and impulsive thinkers decide quickly. Psychologically, the brain seeks efficiency. People who struggle with choices may fear regret or judgment, while those who decide rapidly may prioritize action over perfection. Understanding this helps in leadership, marketing, and relationships, as it reveals how individuals process risk and responsibility. How people talk about others. A timeless psychological insight is this: how people talk about others reveals how they think internally. Someone who constantly criticizes others often operates from insecurity or comparison. Someone who speaks with empathy and understanding tends to possess emotional intelligence. This is because the mind projects internal beliefs onto external narratives. The brain uses storytelling to make sense of the world. When you listen carefully to how someone describes people who are not present, you gain insight into their values, biases, and emotional framework. Over time, this pattern becomes remarkably consistent. Emotional leakage through microexpressions. Microexpressions are brief, involuntary facial expressions that reveal true emotions. They occur in fractions of a second and are difficult to control. While someone may verbally express agreement, their microexpressions might show doubt, fear, or irritation. The human brain processes emotion faster than conscious control allows. Psychologists study these expressions to understand emotional authenticity. Slight tightening of lips, a brief eyebrow raise, or a fleeting smirk can expose real feelings. Learning to notice these signs enhances emotional awareness and helps distinguish sincerity from performance. The stress response and true personality. Stress reveals thinking patterns more clearly than comfort. When under pressure, the brain reverts to default coping mechanisms. Some people become aggressive, others withdraw, and some focus intensely on problem solving. These reactions are not random. They reflect deeply ingrained mental frameworks. By observing how people respond to stress, criticism, or uncertainty, you can understand their emotional resilience, adaptability, and leadership potential. Calm behavior under pressure often indicates cognitive flexibility, while emotional outbursts may signal unresolved internal conflict. Understanding minds, including your own. Understanding mind tricks that reveal how people think is not about control, it is about connection. The more we understand psychological patterns, the more compassionate and effective we become in our interactions. Every gesture, pause, reaction, and word carries information. The human mind is constantly communicating, even in silence. Perhaps the most important insight is this: these mind tricks apply to us as well. By becoming aware of our own reactions, defenses, and habits, we gain self-mastery. Psychology is not just the study of others. It is the mirror through which we understand ourselves. When we learn how minds work, we don't just see people differently. We see life differently. The silent language of the mind. Every day we interact with dozens of people, yet we rarely understand what is truly happening inside their minds. We hear words, but thoughts remain hidden. We see smiles, but emotions stay unspoken. Psychology tells us that human behavior is only the surface. Beneath it lies a silent mental world shaped by fear, desire, memory, and experience. The human mind constantly communicates, not just through speech, but through reactions, pauses, and patterns most people never notice. Understanding how people think is one of the most powerful skills a human being can develop. It determines the quality of our relationships, the effectiveness of our leadership, and even our emotional well-being. Behavioral science suggests that much of our thinking operates subconsciously. This means that long before we choose our words, our minds have already revealed our intentions. In this video, we will explore scientifically supported psychological mind tricks that expose these hidden thought processes and help us understand people on a deeper, more human level. First reactions, where truth lies before logic. In psychology, first reactions are considered cognitively unfiltered responses. According to dual process theory, the human brain operates through two systems, a fast, automatic system and a slow, rational one. The fast system reacts instantly before logic intervenes. This is why the first reaction often reflects the most authentic thought. Emotionally, this matters because people often hide what they feel to protect themselves. But the mind leaks truth. A brief look of disappointment, a forced smile, or a sudden pause reveals emotional alignment or resistance. When you learn to observe first reactions, you are not invading privacy. You are simply witnessing the mind before it learns to pretend. Silence. When the mind speaks loudest. Silence is psychologically uncomfortable because the brain is wired to avoid uncertainty. Research in social psychology shows that humans interpret silence as evaluation. When words disappear, the mind assumes it is being judged. Emotionally, this creates vulnerability, and vulnerability reveals truth. Silence is why people confess, explain, or overshare without being asked. It is not manipulation. It is a cognitive reflex. When you allow silence, you give the other person space to confront their own thoughts. In that space, the mind often reveals what words were trying to hide. Eye movement and cognitive processing. Eye behavior is directly connected to neural activity. Cognitive psychology explains that eye movements reflect memory recall, emotional regulation, and mental load. When people look away during difficult questions, it is often because the brain is processing information, not because they are being dishonest. Emotionally, eyes reveal emotional safety. A relaxed gaze reflects trust, while excessive blinking may indicate anxiety or internal conflict. The eyes are not liars. They are messengers of the mind's workload. When combined with tone and posture, eye movement becomes a powerful indicator of how someone is thinking and feeling in real time. Emotionally, the body reveals comfort or threat. A person may verbally agree, but their body may lean away. This disconnect shows cognitive dissonance, when internal beliefs conflict with external behavior. Observing the body allows you to understand what words refuse to admit. Compliments and self-concept. A person's reaction to a compliment reveals their self-concept, the internal narrative they hold about who they are. Self-verification theory explains that people prefer information that confirms their existing self-beliefs. When a compliment challenges that belief, the mind resists it. Emotionally, this is deeply human. Someone who deflects praise may have spent years feeling unseen or unworthy. Someone who exaggerates acceptance may be seeking validation. This simple moment exposes confidence, insecurity, and emotional history, all within seconds. Mirroring, psychological connection in motion. Mirroring is a subconscious behavior linked to empathy and social bonding. Neuroscience attributes this to mirror neurons, cells that activate when we observe others' actions. When people mirror you, their minds are aligning with yours. Emotionally, mirroring is a sign of psychological safety. It shows trust, respect, and connection. When mirroring disappears, it often signals emotional withdrawal or disagreement. The mind distances itself before the words ever do. Decision-making and mental architecture. How people make choices reveals their cognitive structure. Some individuals are analytical, seeking information and minimizing risk. Others are emotional, guided by values and feelings. Some act quickly, driven by impulse and urgency. Behavioral economics shows that decision-making is shaped by fear of loss, social pressure, and past experiences. Emotionally, indecision often reflects fear, not confusion. Quick decisions may reflect confidence or avoidance. Every choice pattern tells a psychological story about how someone navigates uncertainty and control. How people speak about others. Social psychology consistently finds that people project internal beliefs outward. The way someone talks about others is a reflection of their own mindset. Judgment reveals insecurity. Compassion reveals emotional intelligence. Cynicism often hides disappointment. Emotionally, this matters because language is the window into values. Over time, the mind cannot hide its worldview. Listening carefully reveals how someone interprets the world, and how they will eventually interpret you. Stress. The moment the mask falls. Stress bypasses social filters. Under pressure, the brain reverts to habitual coping mechanisms. Some become controlling, some withdraw, some overexplain. These responses are not learned overnight. They are deeply ingrained mental patterns. Emotionally, stress reveals truth. It exposes emotional regulation, resilience, and self-awareness. The way someone reacts when things go wrong tells you far more than how they behave when everything is easy. Psychology as awareness, not control. Understanding how people think is not about gaining power over others. It is about gaining awareness. Awareness creates empathy. Empathy builds trust. Trust strengthens human connection. Psychology teaches us that everyone carries invisible battles, shaped by experiences we may never see. Perhaps the most profound realization is this: the same mind tricks that reveal others also reveal ourselves. When we understand our own reactions, fears, and defenses, we gain emotional freedom. To understand the human mind is not to judge it, but to respect its complexity. And in that understanding, we become not just better communicators, but better human beings. Reading The Invisible Mind. The human mind has fascinated scholars for centuries. From ancient philosophy to modern neuroscience, one question remains central. Why do people think and behave the way they do? Psychologist William James, often called the father of modern psychology, argued that human consciousness is a continuous stream, constantly shifting, reacting, and adapting. This means that behavior is never random. It is always connected to internal mental processes. Emotionally, this matters because most people spend their lives misunderstood, by others and even by themselves. Psychology helps us listen to what the mind is saying beneath the noise of daily life. In this video, we explore psychological mind tricks supported by the ideas of some of the most influential psychologists in history, revealing how thoughts quietly shape behavior. First reactions and Daniel Kahneman's two systems. Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman introduced the idea of System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, emotional, and automatic, while System 2 is slow, logical, and deliberate. First reactions come from System 1, which is why they often reveal genuine thoughts before social filters appear. Emotionally, this explains why people regret things they say in the moment. The mind reacts before it reflects. Observing first reactions allows us to see people as they truly are before rationalization steps in. Kahneman's work reminds us that truth often appears in milliseconds, not minutes. Silence and Carl Rogers' Humanistic Psychology. Psychologist Carl Rogers, a pioneer of humanistic psychology, believed that people naturally move towards self-expression when given a safe environment. Silence, in this sense, becomes a psychological invitation. When you stop talking, you are not withdrawing, you are allowing space for authenticity. Emotionally, silence creates vulnerability. The mind interprets it as an opportunity to be heard or a threat of being judged. Rogers emphasized unconditional positive regard, which means that when silence is combined with acceptance, people feel safe enough to reveal their true thoughts. Eye movement and Sigmund Freud's unconscious mind. Although many of Freud's ideas are debated today, his concept of the unconscious mind remains influential. Freud argued that much of human behavior is driven by thoughts we are not consciously aware of. Eye movements often reflect this unconscious processing. Emotionally, the eyes reveal internal conflict. Looking away during sensitive topics often signals emotional processing rather than dishonesty. The unconscious mind speaks through subtle behavior long before it finds words. Body language and Albert Mehrabian's communication theory. Psychologist Albert Mehrabian famously studied nonverbal communication and found that a large portion of emotional meaning is conveyed through body language and tone rather than words. While his findings are often oversimplified, the core idea remains powerful. The body often communicates more honestly than speech. Emotionally, posture, orientation, and movement reflect comfort or threat. The body reacts instinctively, revealing what the mind may try to hide. This is why body language is often a more reliable indicator of true feelings than verbal agreement. Compliments and Carl Jung's self-concept. Carl Jung believed that people develop a persona, a social mask presented to the world, while hiding deeper insecurities in the shadow self. How someone reacts to a compliment often exposes the gap between their persona and their internal identity. Emotionally, rejecting a compliment may signal unresolved self-doubt. Overaccepting may signal a hunger for validation. Jung's work reminds us that every reaction is a dialogue between who we show the world and who we believe we truly are. Mirroring and Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Psychologist Albert Bandura proposed that humans learn through observation and imitation. Mirroring is a natural outcome of this process. When people mirror your gestures or tone, their minds are synchronizing with yours. Emotionally, mirroring reflects connection and trust. It is the body's way of saying, "I understand you." The absence of mirroring often signals psychological distance or emotional disengagement. Decision-making and Herbert Simon's bounded rationality. Herbert Simon, a Nobel laureate, introduced the concept of bounded rationality, arguing that humans do not make perfect decisions. They make satisfactory ones based on limited information. This explains why people rely on shortcuts, emotions, and habits when choosing. Emotionally, decision-making reveals fear, confidence, and past experience. Someone who delays decisions may fear loss, while someone who decides quickly may value control. Every choice reflects the architecture of the mind. Judging others and Gordon Allport's trait theory. Psychologist Gordon Allport emphasized that personality traits influence perception. People interpret others through the lens of their own traits and values. This explains why judgment often reveals more about the observer than the observed. Emotionally, constant criticism reflects inner conflict. Empathy reflects emotional maturity. Listening to how people talk about others is like listening to their inner monologue spoken out loud. Stress responses and Hans Selye's stress theory. Hans Selye, the pioneer of stress research, explained that stress triggers predictable physiological and psychological responses. Under pressure, the mind defaults to survival patterns. Emotionally, stress reveals authenticity. It exposes coping styles, emotional regulation, and resilience. When comfort disappears, the mind shows its true structure. From Freud to Kahneman, understanding the human mind. From Freud's unconscious to Kahneman's cognitive systems, psychology teaches us one essential truth. The mind is always speaking. Every reaction, pause, and gesture is part of an ongoing psychological narrative. Understanding these mind tricks does not make us manipulative, it makes us mindful. Emotionally, awareness leads to compassion. When we understand how minds work, we stop taking behavior personally and start seeing it psychologically. And perhaps the greatest insight psychology offers is this: when we learn to read others, we also learn to read ourselves. In that awareness lies growth, connection, and emotional intelligence. 1. William James, The Stream of Consciousness. William James described human thought as a stream, never stopping, always flowing. This means people are constantly reacting internally, even when they appear calm on the outside. Story example. Imagine a student sitting silently in a classroom. To the teacher, the student looks calm and attentive. But inside, their mind is racing, worrying about grades, family pressure, and self-doubt. One simple question from the teacher suddenly triggers anxiety. That reaction wasn't about the question. It was the stream of thoughts already flowing. This is why people sometimes react strongly to small events. Their minds were already full. 2. Daniel Kahneman's System 1 versus System 2 thinking. Daniel Kahneman explained that we think in two systems. System 1 reacts instantly and emotionally, while System 2 thinks slowly and logically. Story example. A manager receives an unexpected email criticizing their work. Without thinking, they reply defensively within seconds. Later, they regret it. That instant reply came from System 1. If they had waited, System 2 would have softened the response. This is why first reactions often reveal what people really feel before logic steps in. 3. Carl Rogers, Silence and Psychological Safety. Carl Rogers believed people reveal their true thoughts when they feel emotionally safe. Story example. A friend asks, "Are you okay?" You reply, "I'm fine." They don't interrupt. They stay silent and maintain gentle eye contact. Suddenly, you sigh and say, "Actually, I'm not." The silence wasn't awkward, it was permission. Rogers showed us that when people feel accepted, the mind opens naturally. 4. Sigmund Freud, The Unconscious Mind. Freud argued that much of our behavior is driven by unconscious thoughts and emotions. Story example. A person laughs during a serious meeting after being questioned. It seems inappropriate, but it's not intentional. The laughter is a nervous release. The unconscious mind is trying to protect itself from anxiety. This is why people sometimes behave in ways they cannot explain. The unconscious is speaking. 5. Albert Mehrabian, Body Language over Words. Albert Mehrabian emphasized the power of nonverbal communication in emotional expression. Story example. Someone says, "I'm happy for you," but their arms are crossed, shoulders tight, and body turned away. The words sound supportive, but the body tells another story. The mind may want to appear polite, but the body reveals emotional resistance. 6. Carl Jung, Persona and the Shadow Self. Carl Jung believed people present a persona to the world while hiding insecurities in the shadow. Story example. A confident speaker receives a compliment after a presentation. They laugh it off and say, "It wasn't that good." The persona appears confident, but the shadow holds self-doubt. Jung helps us understand why people sometimes reject praise. They don't believe it yet. 7. Albert Bandura, Mirroring and Social Learning. Albert Bandura explained that humans learn and connect through observation and imitation. Story example. During a friendly conversation, you notice the other person slowly matching your posture and tone. Without realizing it, their mind is aligning with yours. But when the topic becomes uncomfortable, they stop mirroring and lean back. The connection weakens before words change. 8. Herbert Simon, Bounded Rationality. Herbert Simon showed that humans make decisions with limited information, not perfect logic. Story example. Someone stands in a restaurant menu line for 10 minutes, overwhelmed by choices. Finally, they order the same meal they always do. This isn't lazy.